Okay. Good day, everyone, especially to our instructor, Mr. Anthony Gamali. Sir, good day. Today, I am going to discuss about the Filipino nationalism. So, shall we start? Nationalism is nourished by a sense of history. It is of its essence to know profoundly the past so that we may be in complete openness with the men who made the history and in intimate communion with their thoughts, their deeds, and their novel lives. Filipino nationalism started in the Philippines in the 1800s with an upsurge of patriotic feelings and nationalistic ideals resulting from more than 2 decades of Spanish rule. This served as the backbone of and continues to this day. The first nationalist revolution in Asia, the Philippine Revolution of 1896. These nationalistic feelings have resulted to a comprehensive campaign in the Philippines for political, social, and economic liberty. So, next, let's proceed to historical background of Filipino nationalism. The Philippines had been split into various principalities known as barangays. In the years before the 11th century, a name originating from Malayan chiefs called balangays, or datus or raja or sultans governed these tiny political units. In 1565, when Spanish explorer Miguel Lopez de Legazpi arrived from Mexico and established the first European colonies in Cebu, European colonization started in earnest. Starting with only 5 ships and 500 men, accompanied by Augustinian monks, and further strengthened by 200 soldiers in 1567, he was able to repel competing Portuguese colonizer and lay the foundations for the Spanish colonization of the archipelago. The Spanish occupied the kingdoms of Manila and Tondo in 1571 and founded Manila as the capital of the Spanish East Indies. This Spanish colonization united the archipelago of the Philippines into one political unit. So that's the historical background, the brief historical background of Filipino nationalism. So next, let's proceed to the beginning of Filipino nationalism. Originally, the word Filipino referred to the Philippine Spanish Criollos. The Spanish leaders described the natives as Indians during their 333-year rule over the Philippines. Spaniards born in the Philippines, more known as insulars, Criollos or Criollos, were also called Filipinos during the colonial era as well. Spanish-born Spaniards or Philippine-based continental Spaniards were referred to as peninsulars. Those of blended heritage have been called mestizos. Despite being considered inferior by the peninsulars, the Criollos had enjoyed numerous roles of state and church, and composed most of the bureaucracy of government. The feeling of domestic awareness originated from the Criollos, who now considered themselves Filipino. 3 significant factors are economy, education, and forest secularization brought it to its emergence. These factors led to the Filipino nationalism's birth. The Philippines opening to global or world trade, the increase of the upper class, and the influx of Europe's liberal thoughts were just a few instances of how the Philippines became a stable nation. The first manifestation of the Philippine nationalism followed in the 1880s and 1890s with a reform of propaganda movement carried out both in Spain and in the Philippines with the aim of propagandizing the circumstances of the Philippines in the hopes that the social, political, and financial life of the Philippines would be changed by peaceful means. And this is the story of the Philippine Revolution. Next, let's proceed to other concepts of Filipino nationalism. Nationalism is the secular identification and engagement of our people with the Filipino nation and domestic community. The Philippines are our country and homeland. It goes beyond our family, land, tribe, village, city, province, religion, and local culture and religion. First and foremost, it is being pro-Filipino, believing that we belong to one body, mind and soul and spirit. It is pride to be Filipino, self-respect as a Filipino, pride in our national cultural heritage and manner of life, with their constraints being realized. It involves pride in our heroes, pride in our flags, national anthem, and other symbols of our nationhood, national pride and dignity inspired by the willingness to serve our nation alone and with dedication, and to sacrifice for it, if necessary, with our own lives. It is a toll of change and reform. It aims our moral and spiritual regeneration, our liberation from ignorance, bigotry, or intolerance towards those who hold distinct views of themselves. Parochialism or narrow-mindedness, feudalism as a system in which higher-ranking individuals give land and protection and work and food for them in exchange. Colonial mentality, the internalized attitude of people's racial or cultural inferiority as consequence of colonialization, bravery and distorted elitism, or an elite's advocacy or presence as a dominant component in the same of our community. In other words, as Filipinos, it has a powerful national identity, sense, and high-minded intent. So that's the other concepts of Filipino nationalism. So now let's proceed to the Filipino national identity based in part on our indigenous values. So pagsasarili or self-reliance, pakikisama or equitable sharing and partnership, pagkakabayani or patriotism, pagkakaisa or national unity or national consensus and discipline, pagkikitungo or consideration, pakikipagkapwa-tao or human solidarity based first of all on developing our nation, pagkakapantay-pantay, equality or equity. That's the Philippine national identity based in part or in our indigenous values. So next, let's proceed to the different ways to show Filipino sense of nationalism. Filipinos had already shown their own way of nationalism in the Spanish colonial period. Some fought with their pins and tongues, while others used their arms and weapons, authority. Everyone had their own way of showing our country their love and respect. Some even died and were able to get back our country's freedom. that we enjoy nowadays. But have we ever noticed how some Filipinos demonstrate their feeling of nationalism nowadays? You could read some thoughts in this portion. Okay? To show our nation their nationalism. How some Filipinos show our nation their nationalism. So, first, to show our sense of Filipino nationalism, everyone must work, act, participate, respect, stand proud, and love. That and how to demonstrate our feelings of nationalism today. So next, let's proceed to let us work on our own act today and participate in this government. Respect everyone, including others. Race, stand proud for who you are. Love everyone as how you expect they would love you back. First, respect the Philippine flag and value Filipino identity. Being Filipinos, we should respect our Philippine flag and its purpose. The history and value of this flag are connected to the freedom we have today. Encourage our fellow men to participate and respect our flag and its anthem, and even our different symbols. They provide us our identity as a Filipinos or citizens of the beautiful Republic of the Philippines. Next, be productive. Do not rely on everything and then blame our government, but instead make yourself productive and helpful to the nation. Because some of the Filipinos are blaming the government for any adverse things our nation would strike. True, there are some corrupt political position holders, but they are not all. The only issue here is that we rely too much on our government, then blame them afterwards. We should learn to stand in our own feet and be productive and helpful not only for ourselves but also for everyone. Next, be aware of the issues in our country. We must be aware and updated on the significant issues happening in the country. Extend help to the needy fellow men, especially the victims of disaster like typhoons, flooding, and other calamities. Naturally, all of us use media in our daily life. We could already demonstrate our nationalism to our nation by using this media. Some of our fellow Filipinos use the authority of the press to extend their assistance to others in the past calamities that hit our nation. They publish some data about how the other individuals might be able to assist disaster-affected individuals. Next, stand proud for every achievement. Filipinos are competitive in many ways around the world. They are proud to be Philippines and to be brought to the nation for the awards. For their accomplishments, they unite every Filipino. We can be proud of Filipinos like Manny Pacquiao, the football team of Asgal, and basketball team of Gilas Pilipinas, and many more. Next, patronize and support our own products. The Philippines has rich resources to create quality goods and products. The manpower services we provide are also globally competitive. Our economy will improve more if we ourselves patronize our own products, which characterize our creativity, resourcefulness, and industry. In spite of Filipino migration all over the globe, nationalism is also self-evident. Millions of Filipinos now support goods and products made by Philippines outside the Philippines. Everything is feasible. With the emergence of world economy based on information driven by free trade, market economy, and open capital markets, the Philippine products live up to the standards of quality in all modesty. Next, preserve the Filipino culture. Philippines is rich in various colorful cultural elements. They are our identity. Be proud and preserve the culture we have, for they are our treasure. We have to keep them for the future generation. Migrant Filipinos who have practically grown most of their life overseas almost always return to the Philippines to explore our lovely beaches and the major attraction in nation with 7,107 islands offers. Filipinos maintain a periodic TFC, the Filipino channel, subscription to get in contact with every Filipino. Forget about homesickness while overseas and instill the Filipino values that we see on their television. Next, respect everyone and value our tradition. This is very important. Filipinos are very courteous and respectful. You will acknowledge a Filipino individual everywhere you go because he or she has always been respectful for the elders and others, using the common but certainly classic ho, oho, opo, and po or pagmamano. Even in modern times, many Filipinos show and value their noble norms and traditions. Although Filipinos overseas have held themselves as the peak of their eateries in the prisms of their domestic uniqueness, with a passionate approach to political, social, and economic liberty. Filipinos may have plurality in terms of divided islands, language, religion, and ethnicity, but they share a common country love and vision for better Philippines. Next, expect out our own language. Using our own language is manifesting and preserving our national identity. It is our unique means of communicating and interacting with our fellow men. Our language is an important tool to achieve further unity and national development. Next, remember and commemorate our heroes' sacrifices for our country. There were many Filipinos who died for our democracy, freedom, and independence. Some fought using their pins and tanks, while some used the power of their arms and weapons. Each had their own way of showing their love and respect to our country. In today's generation, let us value and treasure our heroes' sacrifices and devotion for our country. Next, and lastly, love our family, our neighbors, and our countrymen. The essence of life for most Filipinos is to create their family and nation a part of their enduring engagement. They may even express their dedication to unpopular choices born to the advantage of the majority. We are strongly committed to our obligations. Filipinos quit an all effort to work and make private sacrifices around the clock over the weekend hard work. These values, combined with an abundant reservoir or patience, have been inculcated by our beloved parents to our youthful minds. Bravery of Filipino workers abroad is an ideal evidence of human sacrifice for family love and nation love. Being away from home and dealing with the problems of life in a nation you knew no one, and risking yourself into many forbidding dangers are exemplary. Supporting our families' necessities, particularly when serving a well-formulated task of supporting our family's necessities back home by sending remittance that in turn would help increase the economy of the nation and make it more financially stable through monetary assets. And next, let's proceed to the Philippines symbols that promotes a sense of nationalism. Symbols are very, very important to people in quite a lot of countries, especially if these symbols are related to a sense of nationalism. First, the Philippine flag, with red, white, and blue colors, and yellow sun representing the provinces of the country. Next, coat of arms of the Philippines, also featuring the yellow sun with 8 rays depicting the original provinces in the Philippines. Next, Lopang Hinirang or Chosin Land, the Philippine national anthem. Next, Sampaguita, Jasminum Sambak, the national flower of the Philippines, symbolizing purity and simplicity. The flower is small, white, and pleasantly fragrant. 5. Nara or Pyrocarpus, the national tree of the Philippines, also known as rosewood. It is strong, sturdy, and durable, a common rainforest tree. Next, Philippine eagle, Pitucopaga jifferi, the Philippines national bird. It is acknowledged to be severely endangered. The Philippine eagle is protected by law in the country, and there is extreme punishment for any harm done to them. Next, Dr. Jose Rizal, the national hero of the Philippines. Next, Cariñosa or Tinikling, the Philippine national dance. Gracefulness is symbolized by this dance. Carabao or water buffalo, the Philippine national animal. It symbolizes industriousness and hard work due to its use on many farms in the country. Bangus or milkfish, the Philippines national police. It symbolizes versatility because of many ways in which it can be cooked. Next, mango, the national fruit. Philippine mangoes are considered the sweetest fruit in the world. Next, barong, the Philippine national costume or clothing style for men. A tuck shirt or often fabric displaying Chinese, Indo-Malayan, tropical, and Hindu influences for women. Barot saya, skirt and blouse with no collar. Bayan Ko and Pilipinas Kung Mahal are the Philippine national songs. Harness, the Philippine national sport or stick fighting. Anahaw, Levestona rotundifolia, the Philippine national plant. This plant is often used as hat, umbrella, or fan, symbolizing the Filipinos' resourcefulness. And lastly, the nipa hat. Nipa, call that nipa. The Philippine national house, typically a small bamboo house with a thatch roof. And that's all the Philippine symbols that promotes a sense of nationalism. So now let's proceed to the important dates, events, and persons in the rise of Filipino nationalism. The opening of the Philippines to world commerce. So on 1834, Manila was officially part of the world commerce after reviewing different economic policies in 1834 to 1873. This is the period of the development of agriculture in the country because foreigners shared their agricultural ideas. Various ports opened in 1855 in Sual, Pangasinan, Iloilo, and Zamboanga, in 1860 in Cebu, and in 1873 in Tacloban. Consequently, strong financial activity in the colony was stimulated that made the lives of the Filipinos prosperous. Modern farming techniques were introduced and means of transportation and communication were that boast financial advancement, boast tobacco, sugar, and abaca manufacturing. And how some Filipino become ilustrados. So, the middle class or the ilustrados were the educated Filipino who were writing essays, articles, novels, or publication in news journal called La Solidaridad, campaign for reform in the colony in peaceful way. They were made up of the Principalia, or those belonging to the Spanish or Chinese mestizos indigenous to Filipino or upper class. Their families were inquilinos who leased property to the friars. Agricultural production evolved during Philippines' opening to the world trade, which led them to become rich. They were able to improve their social status and send their children to European schools. They later clamored for reforms and equality, and their children became propaganda movement members. And next, let's proceed to the propaganda movement or reform movement, so also known as Junta de Propaganda, Cuerpo de Compromisarios and La Solidaridad, was founded in 19th century by the Ilustrados to improve the lives of low-induced through reforms or changes implemented in the colony. The founders were Dr. Pedro Paterno and Gregorio Santiago, doctors of law who lead the foundation of movement in Madrid. Propaganda refers to the systematic efforts to spread opinion and beliefs by means of pen and tongue. Literally means the publication of a given opinion. Propagandists or reformists, these were the Filipino reformers who freed the country to escape the persecution in 1872. They didn't have the intention of achieving social changes through armed struggle and revolution, rather they campaigned for reform or change by way of writing. They advocated reform by writing books, pamphlet, and newspaper. They were popularly known as ilustrados or intellectuals in Spain, England, and France. And next, let's proceed to the goals of propaganda movement. So, there are 5 goals of propaganda movement. First, to make the Philippines the province of Spain. Filipino representation in the Spanish courts. Next, equality between Spaniards and Filipino. Secularization or granting Filipino prize the right to hold parishes. And lastly, gaining freedom of speech, expression, and assembly. And let's proceed to major causes for the establishment of the propaganda movement. First, emergence of middle class. Next, the liberal administration of General Carlos Maria de la Torre Guaynaba Quirada and execution of Gamborza, and lastly resulted to the deportation of the patriotic Filipinos. And the 3 leading reformists in 19th century. First, Dr. Jose Rizal, Graciano Lopez Haina, and Marcelo H. del Pilar. And that's all for today. And thank you.